गौडपादं च शङ्करं श्रीसुरेश्वरं स्वामिनं सच्चिदानन्दमिन्द्रं तं ज्ञानरूपिणे ओम नारायण नारायण. Okay. Today is Sugama. Okay, as I told you, there will be Sugama will be there only on alternate days. One day Vishuddha Vedanta Sara in Kannada, another day Adhyasa Bhashya with Sugama commentary in English on another day. Like this. let us see for few days. If it works, if it appeals to people, we shall continue. Otherwise, there is another alternative which I thought of. Weekly, consecutively, 3 or 4 days we do Sugama, and 3 days consecutively Vishuddha Vedanta Sara in a week. So then there will be a gap of 3 days for each text. Then the next week alone we shall be able to do. But this is the first method I tried. I am trying. Let me see how it works, how it appeals to people. So today is a Sugama. So the day before, yesterday we were discussing in Kannada Nididhyasana, and day before yesterday Adhyasa Bhashya. So first chapter we finished the introduction that there is an Adhyasa. Adhyasa is found in our life because there is Vyavahara. The Vyavahara we see, and Atma Anatma Adhyasa. Now to discuss the same Adhyasa much more details, here the second chapter begins. Evam tavad aham mameti naisargikoyam loka vyavahara. This was told that there is an instinctive Vyavahara. Vyavahara is instinctive. Instinctive in the sense nobody has consciously taken up. See, I am a karta by Vyavahara, you see. Jnata, karta, bhokta. Just a minute. Jnatrutvam, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam. That I am a jnata, that I am a karta, that I am a bhokta is naturally there. I have neither developed nor picked up. See, you have no choice but be karta, bhokta, jnata. By instinctive, I mean this. It is choiceless. That I am karta is choiceless. That I am bhokta is choiceless. That I am jnata is choiceless. I think we said it in one of the talks before. Now I just say little more elaborately. As long as I am awake, that is during my waking state, I find myself to be jnata, karta, bhokta. Jnatru, kartru, bhoktru. This is how you say in Kannada. But in Sanskrit we say jnata, karta, bhokta. So only in deep sleep your jivatvam characterized by kartrutva, bhoktrutva, jnatrutvam. This kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, jnatrutvam is the nature of jiva. This jivatvam gets suspended only in deep sleep. But the moment you are awake, you find yourself to be karta, bhokta, jnata. So you have not chosen to become karta, bhokta, jnata because you find yourself to be karta, bhokta, jnata or jiva. So in jivatvam itself implies the atma, anatma, adhyasa. Mutual superimposition of atma, anatma. This jivatvam itself implies the mutual adhyasa between atma and anatma. So it is so instinctive, so natural. Because the very individuality, very jivatvam or very kartru-bhoktru jnatrutvam is natural. Instinct, because the word instinctive when I use, we go by the English definitions of instinctive, but they have got certain somewhat different interpretation. Though we are using English words, we use them in our Sanskrit meaning alone, in our Indian meanings alone. Therefore, don't go by literally English words and start arguing it. But anyway, you have no chance to argue because the Jnana Prakasha closes on and off, doesn't allow this kind of questions. So I am already clarifying you Naisargika, Swabhavika in our Indian context, in our Indian Shastras. When we say Naisargika, it is a Nisarga. Nisarga is, Sarga is Janma. Naisargika means Janma Jata. It is instinctive with you. Swabhavika, we mean it. Swabhavika, Naisargika. It means you have not chosen. That's what it means. You are choicelessly find yourself to be Karta Bhokta Jnata. When you are awake, your sense organs are awake and you start seeing the world. Your kartrutvam is there. You keep doing. You are willing. Willing means you are doing. Your willpower is operating. Bhokta. Sukha dukkha anubhavas are coming. Sukha dukkha anubhavas are coming. So sukha dukkha anubhavas are continuously there. Therefore, kartrutva, bhoktrutva, jnatrutva, these are instinctive. And this instinctive is vyavahara. Vyavahara means being a jnata. As I told you, jnatrutvam, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, these are individual jiva nature. So vyavahara means a thought, a speech and action. Having certain thoughts and addressing them, referring to them in the same way and also acting. So, pratyaya, vyapadesha, cheshta. Cheshta is not Kannada cheshta. Cheshta means action. So, these three are called vyavahara. So, we find that I am somebody, there is a thought about myself, that I am an individual. I am a karta, I am a bhokta, I am a jnata. There is an understanding, a thought about myself. And I also refer to myself as an individual, jiva. And I also act as a jiva. Isn't it? This is called vyavahara. Now coming to the world. I understand this is world. World means many objects. I understand this as a book, this as a table, this as a wall, this as a... So with various names. I understand the world as a world. I am using a general word, world. World means many things. Many things. So you have an understanding of this world as a world and refer to it as a world and also use it as a world. Okay, world means a given object. We are talking in general. For example, take, you understand the book as a book and refer to it as a book and also use it as a book. Similarly, understand the table as a table and refer to it as table and use it as a table. For whatever purpose it is meant for, you use it. So these three things put together is called vyavahara. So this vyavahara, about myself, about the world, a thought about myself, an understanding about myself, an understanding about the world, and also language we use, and also we act. I act accordingly. Okay, so this is vyavahara, is instinctive. By instinctive we mean it is natural. You have not chosen, you find yourself in it. You have not chosen because as an individual you choose. As an individual you choose certain action. That between action, whether I to do this or that, whether I should do now or should do later. So this you have a choice between action. You have some choice. But even to be a person who chooses itself is choiceless. That I am a karta, I have not chosen to be karta. I find myself to be jiva. I find myself to be an individual. I have not chosen to be an individual jiva. I find myself to be jiva. That means when you are awake, you just wake up. You feel that you are a jiva and you see there is a world. That's all. You are a jiva and there is a world and Vyavahara is going on. Only in sleep, Vyavahara is suspended. Your sense of individuality, your karta, bhokta, jnata, this understanding, the reference, the activity, all this is suspended. When you are, even your waking up is not your choice. See, you go to sleep, it is not your choice. See how interesting it is. You go to sleep, it is not in your choice. You try, but thing is, sleep comes automatically and overtakes you. Sleep automatically comes and overpowers you, overtakes you. Overpowers you, and you feel that you are asleep. All your knowledge, all your awareness is suspended. Your consciousness, wakeful consciousness stops, and again wakeful consciousness comes. In fact, comes you can't say, because you being in wakeful consciousness, you say I have come, but otherwise you have never experienced the very process of coming. Process of coming nobody has seen. You find in waking state and then comparing with your deep sleep, you say that I have come. But that coming is not a matter of your experience. Therefore, you find you are in waking, that's all. You find yourself to be in waking. And going to sleep, you feel tired and then you stop all, you suspend all your activities of the body. Don't think and lie down. And the sleep automatically comes and overpowers you. It takes you. And then waking up also automatically comes. That means it is choiceless. Waking up is choiceless. Going to sleep is choiceless. Dreaming is also choiceless. You don't choose to have a dream. Dream comes. You have no choice. Everybody dreams. Okay. Waking is there. Waking goes away. Dream comes. You have no choice. Dream goes. You keep on dreaming, and suddenly you wake up from the dream. You have no choice. Did you think that let me continue in dream? Even if you think you have no choice, suddenly the dream itself wakes up. You wake up, you have no choice. You are not choosing. For some time you continue, you don't know how long. Sometimes the dream is little shorter, little longer. Sometimes a good dream, bad dream, all mixed dream, all kinds of dream. You have no choice. It just happens. That's why we say this is called Swabhavika, this is called Naisargika. You go to sleep because you have no choice. Even if you resist, how long you resist? Maybe 1 day, 2 days. That's all. Third day, even if you're sitting position, standing position, the sleep comes and overpowers you. Wherever you are, sleep just comes. That's all. You have no choice. Isn't it? Just like hunger and thirst. Hunger and thirst, do you choose to be hungry or you find yourself to be hungry and thirsty? You have no choice whether to feel hungry or not. Similarly, just as you have no choice to feel hungry or thirsty, similarly you feel that you are awake, you feel that you are in dream, you see that you are in deep sleep, and you wake up. Similarly, that you are a karta bhokta, that you are an individual, you just find naturally in you. Whenever you look at yourself, you find that you are this. This natural finding is called Naisargika Swabhavika. So, just to help you to understand how Vedanta goes to the root of the problem. Very root of the Jivatvam is Adhyasa. Other schools are there. I referred in my previous class, that is day before yesterday, a slight contrast with other schools like all non-Advaitins. Broadly I put them, though there are minute differences between them, broadly I put them all Vishishtadvaita, Advaita, etc. in one class, one group. So this is the instinctive thing is Advaitins. Then why this Jiva Bhava comes? We told Jiva Bhava doesn't come, Jiva Bhava is found to be there. That's all. You find to be there. It is not coming, because coming and going implies event, and that too in time. But the time itself is beginningless. You have an experience of time because you are an individual. As an individual, you have an experience of time. As an individual, you have an experience of space. As a jiva, you have an experience of the world. The jivatvam is natural, choiceless. That as a jiva, I happen to experience the world is also choiceless. Being a jiva, see, being a jiva and as a jiva experiencing a world, including time and space, this whole thing is put together is one adhyasa. Okay? Being a jiva and as a jiva finding a world, that interacting the world, experiencing the world, that you are with the world. Just as I am an individual, once you see that you are an individual, as an individual you are with the world. So that the world, individuality, time and space, all this put together is one experience. One experience I say because all this is a one unbroken continuity. It is a one block. It is a one piece, one unit, let us say. One unit, one piece. Within that there may be divisions, differences, but all the divisions, distinctions, differences, all that put together is one unit, one experience. Okay, one block of experience. This experience that you are a jiva, that there is a world, and you are interacting, you have choicelessly, all this is an experience we call as swabhavika jivatvam, swabhavika samsara. This swabhavika samsara is called vyavahara, which is a swabhavika, and this swabhavika presupposes an underlying misunderstanding, an adhyasa. So there, here you can see, Advaita goes to this root cause of jivatvam and the world, jiva and world. So this whole block of jivatvam and world, jivatvam itself means world. Without world there is no jivatvam and there is no jivatvam without the world. See, world also means all lokas. See, as long as you are a jiva, karta bhokta jiva, whatever you experience, all that is world. World means one cosmos. By world we mean there are two ways of using the word. Jagat means vividha lokas. In English, a loka is also called world, Jagat is also called world. Isn't it? But in English, world means very limited meaning. World means only this earth alone they call world. When you have to include the sun, moon and star, they call cosmos. See, that English language doesn't suit our Indian thinking at all. So I'm giving this explanation so that even when I use English words, keep our Indian meanings in view. Our Indian meanings in view. They say world means only globe alone, this earth alone, they talk of the world. And when you talk of the nature, when you talk of the sun and moon and the star, they call it cosmos. So they have got the world and cosmos. That's all, only two. And for us, when we say that, and the same word is used for Bhuloka, they say the human, they call it, now when we are translating Bhuloka, Swargaloka, etc., how do we translate? How do we means I am seeing the Indian Vedantins translating into English. They say it is a human world. Then they say the heavenly world. Now the world has become a narrow meaning now. Human world, heavenly world, and the lower world and our world. There are 7 lokas when they say they call 7 worlds. That means the world is equated with loka. See how the English word world is equated with loka. Therefore we say Manusha loka, then Pitruloka, then other loka, then the world of the mains. Pitruloka means the world of the Pitrus, world of the Devatas, world of the Rishis, then Brahmaloka, the world of Brahman. Like this, the word world is used synonymous to loka, synonymous to earth, globe, like this. So the world English has got its own meanings. Now when we say, we mean Jagat. Jagat includes Brahma Stamba Pariyanta, from Brahmaloka, from Vaikuntha Loka up to the Naraka Loka. All the lokas are part of the world alone. All the lokas put together is a world, one world, the vast world. Shastriya Jagat. Jagat or Prapancha, when we say the entire world, which includes even the loka, Brahma Loka to Naraka. and the plants, animals, human, everything. Okay. So, as long as you are Jiva, in whatever form, you may be Utkrishta Jiva, highly advanced spiritual who goes to Brahmaloka. Still he is a Jiva. And then Manusha Jiva. Same Jiva in the Manusha Janma. Same Jiva in the Pitru Janma. Same Jiva in the Swargaloka. Same Jiva in the Brahmaloka. Same Jiva in the Vaikuntha Loka. Same Jiva in the Prani, animal Loka. The same Jiva in the plant Loka. Same Jiva in the Naraka Loka. So, in any of the Lokas, right from the Brahma's Loka to the plants, in any Loka wherever you are as a Jiva. Okay. Now, this broad spectrum of Jivatvam. Jivatvam is not an individual. Individuality is his nature, but the Jivatvam is a broad spectrum. It lives as a Manusha. Within the Jivatvam there is a Manusha. Jiva is not equated to Manusha. See, Jiva is not equated with Manusha because Jiva assumes Manusha Janma, Jiva assumes Pitru Janma, Jiva assumes Devata Janma, Jiva assumes Rishi and lives in Brahmaloka, Jiva assumes Prani Janma, Prani means animal Janma, Jiva assumes the plant Janma, Jiva assumes the Krimi, Kitaka, insect and small, even bacteria and virus and all. Jiva assumes, Jiva goes to Narakaloka. So, Jiva is a broad area, extended Jivatvam. Jivatvam is a range, is a broad range. Within that many janmas occur. We have to see like this, okay? This is a Vedantic way of looking. In Karmakanda, they means Jiva is okay. But Jivatvam involves many janmas. Then the Jagat means involves many lokas. Right from the Brahmaloka, Swargaloka, Pitruloka, Manushaloka, Animals Loka, plants and even Narkaloka, all the upper lokas, 7 and lower lokas down. Upper lokas, lower lokas, all 14 lokas put together is one Jagat. Okay. We include Brahmaloka also. Advaitins include Brahmaloka also into Jagat. Of course, non-Advaitins, they say, except Vaikuntha, remaining alone they call the world. Vaikuntha is something outside it. Anyway, that is their way of presenting it. But we include any world you experience as a Jiva, all that is a part of the world. Okay. As a Jiva, in your broad spectrum of Jivahood, wherever you are in whatever form, I am a Jiva, always associated with some world. World may be higher loka, lower loka, whatever the type of the world. That means me and the world. This put together, the entire world. When we say Advaitin's world, all the Brahmaloka to the what you call Stamba. Stamba means the animal, no, not animal, plant. Plant means even the smallest insect, whatever you take it. The smallest being up to the Brahmaloka, all this is world. And Jiva, even when you are in Brahmaloka Jiva, highly Utkrishta Sattvika Jiva, or the most lowest Jiva is in Naraka, or a plant animal. A plant or amoeba, nowadays we call it amoeba, okay. The lowest Jiva like amoeba, a unicellular being amoeba, or if there is still lower than amoeba also, we are not particular about whether amoeba or plant or anything. Whichever is even the lowest than amoeba, lower than amoeba, if it is there, suppose scientists discover tomorrow or day after, even that we include. Probably even virus, because virus is partly living, partly non-living. We don't know. Scientists are unable to decide. Virus is living or non-living. It is in between. Partly living, partly non. So we include that also. That Janma also. That Janma also of Jiva. All this is the broadest spectrum of Jivahood. Okay. So, this Jivatvam is natural. As a Jiva, you can fluctuate between these Janmas. As a Jiva, according to your Punya Papa, you will fluctuate. According to your maturity level, according to your maturity of your mind, your values, your purity, your Sattvika, Rajasa, Tamasa qualities, according to your Punya Papa, you fluctuate within the... So, Jivatvam is a broad spectrum. Within that you can fluctuate from the different levels. These levels are called various janmas, various lokas. Okay. Various janmas, various lokas, but as a jiva, you remain jiva. Now we are talking of the very jivatvam. Jivatvam is swabhavikam. Now, coming to the non-Advaitins, what we discussed the day before yesterday, I just briefly say and we'll proceed it. So, proceed with it. The non-Advaitins, but within Hinduism alone, like Vasishtadvaitin, Dvaitin and Nimbarka, Vallabha and others, they say, Jivatvam, they also, Jivatvam is natural. But say, when they say Jivatvam is natural, it is true also. This is one difference. For Advaitin, Jivatvam is natural, but it is not true. It is still, it involves the Mithyatvam, it is ignorance, it is due to Ajnanam. It is not its Swarupa. It is natural, but it is not its original nature. It is not its essential nature. Swarupa is different from Swabhava. Okay? Swabhava is instinctive, but not Swarupam. Jiva's Swarupam is Brahma only. Jivatvam is instinctive, is natural, it is choiceless, as long as you are ignorant. As long as you are in Adhyasa, it is choiceless. If you can correct your Adhyasa by Brahmajnanam, then the Jivatvam doesn't exist for you. Then you are Brahmat. Then Brahmatvam is choiceless for you. Okay. So, Jivatvam, as long as you are Jiva, you fluctuate within these things. So, they say, Jivatvam is natural, they say, but they all say, Jivatvam is his Swarupam. In Jivatvam, you can become advanced high Jiva who is fit to live in Brahmaloka or Vaikuntha. So that is your natural state. There, in that natural state, you get rid of your physical body. Physical body alone is Adhyasa for them. For non-Advaitin schools within Hinduism, Deha alone is Adhyasta. But mind is, Sukshma Sharira is natural with them. They don't call it Sharira, it is natural, it is a part of the Jiva, therefore it is essential part of Jiva, can't be separated. So, there only purified mind alone remains even in Vaikuntha, even in Brahmaloka. Purified Antakarana lives, the only impure Antakarana goes away. So, impure Antakarana goes away, papas go away, physical body goes away, Bhuloka goes away, other lokas go away, only this much. But still he lives Jiva. Then they live it in another loka, so they call a high advanced loka. But Advaitins say, as long as you are a Jiva, in any form, purest form and lowest form, all that is within Adhyasa. So just for contrast, to understand, I am telling you. The next is, then the Arya Samaj and others. They also take Jivatvam is natural. Natural means Jiva is not created by anybody. In all Indian schools, Jiva is not created by anybody. This is a very interesting thing. All schools of philosophy, all traditions of all religious traditions, all Upasana Sampradayas, none of them accept Jiva is created by God. All Jivas are naturally existing, coexisting with Ishvara. Jiva, Ishvara, they coexist. As Anadi, beginningless Ishvara is, so Anadi is Jiva. All Indian schools accept. Only the relation between Jiva and Ishvara also changes according to their schools of different schools of philosophy. How much he is dependent, how close to Ishvara, how away from Ishvara. But Jiva is as naturally existing as Ishvara. Therefore, nobody can create Jiva. Jiva's creation is impossible, non-existing. Only Jiva's body is created, mind is purified. That's all. But Jiva creation is not there in Indian schools at all. Okay. Now in the Islam, Christianity and other three, other means the whole three, Judaism put together, in all the three of European religions, Jivatvam itself is created by Ishvara. When Jiva himself creates Ishvara, that's why the European atheists are different, they have got different thoughts. They question the very concept of God, because if Jiva is created by God, here the question, it's an interesting, Indians also, we Hindus also must study. I think we have totally ignored studying them. If Jiva is created by God, Then even though he is created by God, he is living in an Eden garden, he was living there comfortably. Then God thought, I think God, the atheists accused them, God himself created the mischief for Jiva's suffering. Therefore, either accuse the God and call him he is the culprit, or say that God is non-existent. He is like another Jiva like us, because he has got all human weaknesses, all human thoughts, all human feelings like us. He is like another Jiva. He is like another Jiva alone. He is imagined to be little better than, little more powerful Jiva alone. This is what it looks. Their concept of God looks like another little more powerful Jiva. But it doesn't look any better than ordinary Jiva. He has got all Jiva's weaknesses, all Jiva's problems, Jiva's ego, Jiva's frustrations, Jiva's anger, Jiva's desires, and he creates the world. He looks like little more better Jiva, that's all. Not, you can't say better, little more powerful Jiva. We can't call him better. So if our Indian evaluation, if our evaluation of their concept is, doesn't look like God at all, he looks like another Jiva. Okay, only he claims a lot, which is not capable. But he claims a lot, though he is not capable of anything. He claims a lot, he appropriates a lot, which our Europeans are capable of doing now. Europeans and Americans are appropriating Indian Shastras, Indian books and Indian thing. They are destroying our religions and our culture and appropriate the culture. The same thing the Abrahamic God does. So these people are imitating Abrahamic gods a lot. But we have to just study and see them. Now, they say Jiva is created by God. When he created, he was good. He was good, he didn't have a problem, he was living happily. So, then that Adam was, God thought that Adam is alone, but Adam never complained that I am alone, I am feeling bored, I need a company, I need a girl, I need a girlfriend. He never told. It is God himself imagines that, oh, the poor fellow must be feeling lonely, therefore I created her. See, here itself God created a problem. He created a companion. He himself thought, and he created a Eve. And that he gave an instruction that don't do these things, and then he gave some instruction that follow. He gave an instruction that only except this tree you can eat the fruits of anything. Now there is a Satan. See, three things are there. God creates Jiva, and he creates a companion Eve, and also God. Here it is a very surprising thing. If God created first Jiva, then who is Satan first? Satan existed even before God, even before the first man. So the very concept of first man, first Jiva looks very ridiculous. Because the Satan was there already, angels were there already. Then if angels and Satan were there, then Jivas were already there. Therefore the whole Bible is a bundle of confusion and contradiction. Okay. It's a confusion and contradiction. Isn't it? If Jivas were already there, then how can he create the world out of nothing? Because angels were there, Satan was there already. So angels and Satan were there means the world was there already. So this is the very confusion. Now okay, first human being he created, and then he created a companion, what is her name? Eve. And when he created that, and God was sitting, he only gave instructions and kept quiet. He gave instructions and watching. And that's all, only these things. God's instruction is there, Eden garden, Adam and Eve. Only four things. Adam and Eve, garden, in the garden there is a tree, and he gives an instruction, this much was there. Then Satan interferes and starts. In fact, the whole world is started by Satan alone. Isn't it? God only created this much and kept quiet. And watching. Satan starts interfering and threatens, and I tell you, it made God also run away. So the whole God is worried under tension. It is the Satan seems to be more powerful who puts the God under tension. And Satan started interfering. Now, the atheists generally question, if the man is tempted by Satan, first all the details I leave that. First he tempts the Eve, and Eve goes and tempts the Adam, and all these details we leave them. We say it is tempted, that's all. Now the question comes, why Jiva is The first man is, they don't call Jiva, they call first man alone. Because the Jiva concept they don't have at all. Jiva concept they don't have it. They call first man, that's all. Because the concept of Atma, concept of Jiva they don't have. Concept of Atma doesn't exist. They call soul. Soul means only mind. Soul means only mind, that's all. Not sometimes mind, sometimes breath. They call breath is soul or the mind is soul. And there is no Atma, Chaitanyam, all that they have no concept. Because it is all childish religion, foolish religion. All the three are foolish religion, childish religions only. So, now the question comes, if Satan tempted them through Eve or directly tempted or through Eve tempted, whatever way, due to temptation they disobeyed God, they say. Now the question comes, why man, first man, Adam, was prone to temptation? This is the basic question. If you create a person prone to temptation, prone means a volavu, a moggu ide, Telugulo moggu antam. A manassulo moggu unnadi, there is a volavu in Kannada. In English we say there is a proneness. A proneness in the mind that you get tempted. See, according to your nature you can tempt. See, you can do something only if there is a... See, a baby can be tempted, baby can be misled because baby is innocent. Isn't it? That means the innocence is what baby is created. Baby doesn't know. You tell anything, baby believes. Anything you tell, baby believes. Because baby just doesn't know what is what. Even if you tell lies, baby believes. A kid believes. Baby means a kid. So here, a kid is prone because he is innocent. He is prone to be cheated, prone to be misled, prone to be attracted. Okay. ಆಕರ್ಷಿತರಾಗುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಭಾವ ಇದೆ. Then therefore, now the question comes, is it not God's responsibility that He created such a jiva who gets easily tempted by say Satan? Because he is prone to that. They say God created. If God created, He should have created in such a way that he will not be tempted, he will be always obedient. Why did He created that He is subject to obedience and disobedience? And they say God created out of nothing. For us, for Indian schools, God doesn't create jiva, but jiva's nature is swabhavika. Here we can say into two, Advaitins, non-Advaitins. According to non-Advaitins, jiva is swabhavika. And according to jiva's previous karma, karma is anadi. According to karma, but they say Ishvara doesn't create jiva. You see, Indian schools, other than Advaita, all schools say they don't create jiva's nature. Jiva is weak by nature. He is subject to karma, karma phala. All this is instinctively there with jiva. Only thing is, God only helps him to do punya karma and uplifts him, that's all. So, jiva is always together with Ishvara, with his weaknesses, with all his natural weaknesses. Jiva is there, nobody created. If so, therefore they cannot question why jiva is like that. Why God created jiva like that? God did not create, according to Indian schools, non-Advaitins, God did not create jiva to be like that. It is jiva's nature. Jiva exists along with Ishvara, like that. Only thing is, his karma, his ragadvesha, his weaknesses, they alone tempt him. And he does the papa, he does the punya. He depends on Ishvara, he takes help of Ishvara, he becomes a bhakta, he will do more punya and he will avoid papa. He will avoid papa, he will do punya and more come towards God, and ultimately with the help of the God, go to Vaikuntha, whatever loka, highest loka he will go. Okay. So, jiva is natural. But according to the Abrahamic religions, jivatvam itself is created. World is created. Then why did He created the world like this? Why did He created the jiva like this? Who is prone to temptation and prone to this thing? Because they have no karma. They have no concept of anadi. That jiva already exists anadi, they don't have it. And jiva's purva janmas also they have no karma. Purva janma is not there. Because He created the fresh jiva first time. then why he created? Why he created means he wanted to demonstrate that how great he is. See, the Bible, all the three. Bible means three: Old Testament, New Testament and Last Testament. That's Quran. All the three testaments, they say that God wants to demonstrate how great he is. Why he created? That is his wish. Oh, he looks very dictatorial, very cruel, very dictatorial. That God has got so much of desire, so much interest that he wants to demonstrate. To whom? Why does he want to demonstrate? To whom does he want to? So that people will realize that how great I am. Is he suffering from insecurity that he needs somebody's appreciation? That some jiva should be created and jiva comes and praises him. Oh God, how great you are. Then he feels happy, then he will send you to heaven. Then somebody like a Hindu, he doesn't care for such an Abrahamic God, and then he gets angry and he will send him to hell. So God himself seems to be a very whimsical fellow, a cranky fellow, whimsical fellow. Something is wrong with his mind, and then he suffers from insecurity. Therefore he wants his ego to be boosted by somebody. He wants sycophancy. He wants somebody to praise him. Sycophancy means mukhastuti. He wants sycophancy means mukhastuti. He wants somebody to do mukhastuti. Then he says that, oh, I am helpless. So jivas has to be suffering. If jivas are suffering, out of suffering they say, oh God, I help. If people are helpless, God feels so happy that there is somebody helpless and wants to, and praises me and wants to, and seeking my help, you feel very happy. That means you have got some problem with your mind. If God wants somebody to be helpless, and helpless people praise him and appeal to him, then he feels okay, and his ego boosted, and then he wants to help them. That means God himself looks like another jiva. This is our evaluation. So the European and Western atheists criticized that God himself is like another pervert fellow. It's a psychological case. That means the people who have imagined, who have understood such God, themselves were childish people. See, God is discovered. Hindu concept is God is discovered. So the discovery depends upon your state of mind. If your mind is a Rishi's mind, your discovery of God is like a Rishi's God. If your mind is a childish Abrahamic mind, and your discovery of God will be another mental case equal to the Abrahamic mind. See, depending upon your state of mind, you discover that kind of God. Okay. The kind of God, the nature of God, the nature of the world, and nature of Jiva. The nature of Jiva, nature of the world, and nature of God. And nature of samsara, what is moksha, all this is discovered by Jiva. The discovery depends upon your maturity level of mind. Okay. So they have a very childish mind, therefore they thought of God. A childish mind is a child is frightened. They see him, God is like father. Father is also sometimes dictatorial and angry. Father beats you. Okay, when he loses temper, they imagined God is like a father. So it is a childish kid's religion imagined as a father God. Father God imagined by a kid's religion. Okay. Kids are rishis. Their rishis are kids alone. Their prophets are spoiled kids. Okay. Their Abrahamic religions, I am not abusing, I am just analyzing and evaluating and telling you. Their ordinary jivas, ordinary human beings of those three religions are like kids. Their prophets are like, delinquent teenager, a spoiled teenager, a dictatorial teenagers, their prophets are. And their prophets have imagined another dictatorial God like them. You can see the prophets and gods, there is no much difference. Both are same. They are two sides of the same kind. Their prophets are same egoistic, pervert, disturbed people. And their gods are also perverted, disturbed God. God means one God alone, same God. With three names. Jehovah according to Judaism, God according to Christianity, and then Allah according to, these are all Arabic, different language names, but it is one God. So the God is like another side of the same coin. The prophets, like Moses, and there are other prophets, let us take one representative, Moses as a Old Testament prophet, and Jesus and Muhammad. So these three prophets, Moses, Jesus, MJ and M. Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. MJM. All three put together as one prophet, because the prophetic nature is one. Similar. One means a similar nature. So they look like a very spoiled, delinquent, threatening, frightening, that you must do that, otherwise I'll do this thing. See, he uses the name of God all the time to threaten people, frighten people. And their understanding of Jiva, understanding of the world, understanding of God is a very childish, because it doesn't have a very sattvic mind. It doesn't have very advanced, deeper Rishi's mind. So if you have a Rishi's mind, your understanding of God is of Rishi. Okay? Therefore, their concept of Jiva, what is Jiva, how Jiva comes into samsara, that means how Jiva is samsari, how he comes out of. So, non-Advaitins say, Jiva comes into samsara and goes into moksha. All non-Advaitins come to India. Within Hinduism, all non-Advaitins talk of Jiva comes into samsara and leaves the samsara and goes into moksha. But Advaitins say, Jivatvam and samsara is synonymous. As long as you are Jiva, that is samsara. Wherever you are, in whichever world you are. Jivatvam is samsara, samsara is Jivatvam, both are synonymous. For non-Advaitins, Jiva comes into samsara and goes into moksha. Jiva is common, but he shifts from the samsaratvam and moksha, samsara and moksha. Then the question comes to the same Jiva, why he came into samsara? They say, being in samsara is not. There again two schools are there. Arya Samaj and Brahma Kumari is one group, and remaining are one group. They say, Jiva comes into samsara due to his past karma. For Arya Samajis and Brahma Kumaris, why Jiva comes down into samsara, they just can't say anything. They say he just came. And only you have to strive for up. That's all. It looks in between our Indian and then a little more advanced step over the Abrahamic. In Abrahamic, Jiva is created, but here Jiva is not created but comes into samsara for no reason. See, for no reason, he comes into samsara. But Jiva is not created. For them, for Abrahamic religion, Jiva is created. So, for other people, other than Arya Samaj and Brahma Kumaris, other people, I think Brahma Kumari, Arya Samaj is also accept karma. I told you these are all classification is broad classification. There are minor different. I think they also accept karma. So, karma again partial karma, not unlike us. They have got a very peculiar mind. We leave all those details. Because the detail, if you will enter into the Arya Samaj, it will take days together. So, other non-Advaitins, other than Arya Samaj and Brahma Kumari, these middle Hindus, they say Jiva is not created, but samsara is anadi, due to karma, due to ajnana, due to abhakti. Abhakti means absence of bhakti, absence of surrender. Absence of surrender means what? Egoistic. Being egoistic, and ajnanam, egoistic, and karma. They say these three. Karma, ajnanam, egoistic. These three are the karanam of his samsara. And these three are anadi, therefore Jiva is also anadi. Anadi means he has been living. So therefore Jiva is existing, but his jivatvam samsara, his samsara is anadi. Due to karma, due to ajnanam, and due to ego. Ego means lack of bhakti. We are putting ego and bhakti opposite. Bhakta doesn't have ego, and egoistic person doesn't have bhakti. So these are all instinctively there, naturally there. So if he does punya, more punya, then naturally he will get a satsanga and he will get little more knowledge about samsara and all that. Then he will get vairagyam from the worldly life. Then he will become little humble man and practice with the help of the jnanam, with the help of the punyam. Okay? With the help of the punyam, with the help of the jnanam, he will get vairagyam from the bhuloka and other worlds. Bhuloka, sargaloka, pitruloka. Then he will become a utkrishta jiva, sadhaka, and he will practice bhakti, and as a result of the bhakti, God gives him moksha, will take him to Brahmaloka, and eternally will remain in Brahmaloka. that is moksha. Eternally he will remain Brahmaloka. So here, he remains a jiva. His only jiva state will change. That means what changes? His karma, papa will go away. All papas will go away. Only punya remains. Even in punya, there are two types of punya. Punya meant for Brahmaloka, punya meant for lower lokas. All punya meant for lower loka gets burned away. Papas gets burned away. Punya meant for lower lokas burns away. Only punya meant for Brahmaloka alone remains, and bhakti remains, and Ishvara's Saguna Brahma's jnana remains. Punya, Saguna Brahma's Bhagavat Seva. All the punya acquired by doing seva, and also Ishvara's jnana and Ishvara's bhakti. The result of bhakti. So these three he carries and goes to Vaikuntha or Brahmaloka. Remains there permanently. Okay? I told you I am talking broadly. Don't accuse me because I am just ignoring the many details. Just broadly, only to show the contrast. My purpose is just to show the contrast. I am taking broadly. There are many minute details. But he remains a jiva. A utkrishta jiva, advanced shuddha jiva. But still jivatvam, individuality remains. Okay. But Advaitins say, even if he is an utkrishta jiva, very advanced jiva, very nice man, very gentleman, very humble man, as long as his jivatvam, a few weaknesses will remain. Sometimes you get angry, sometimes you lose temper, still you have little selfishness. You get angry that you will hate Shaivas, you will hate Advaitins. So little bit of hatred also will go with it. Okay, you will have little hatred, you will have little anger, their anger and hatred cannot be compared with ordinary man's anger. It looks a little more sophisticated, little more polished. They are all because they are very great people. Their bhakti, their jnanam, their vairagyam, their advancedness, their broad heart, their selflessness is very, very, very appreciable, very high quality. Just I am not making fun of them, only to show the contrast I am telling. So they are utkrishta jivas. Like Jaya Vijaya in the Vaikuntha, very Puranas, Bhagavata says that they go to Jaya Vaikuntha. Sanat Kumara, I tell you briefly, Sanat Kumara went to Vaikuntha once and he crossed the 6 gates. At the last gate he went there, he wanted to have darshan of Vishnu. Jaya Vijayas were there, the bhaktas who are Vaikuntha Vasi at the gate. They are Nitya Bhaktas, they remain eternally there. Even they had the discrimination. They told that, hey, Sanat Kumara, you are coming here, Vishnu is resting here, Narayana is resting, you can't disturb him. Hey, come on, stay here alone. Then Sanat Kumara told that, see, you are coming in between God and me. We are bhaktas. We have nothing else other than God. We have surrendered every atom of us to God. And therefore God alone is directly related to us. Who are you to interfere? Hey, you should have little more bhakti to be able to understand a bhakta and God. Bhakta like us and God, you should enjoy, you should appreciate another bhakta's love for God. You are interfering in the bhakta's love between God, you are interfering in the bhakti of God and bhakta. That means you are behaving like a small-minded human being. Therefore, go back to human janma. They cursed them. Go back to human janma. Because human beings have got raga, dvesha, separation, individuality, differences and divisions. Differences and divisions are more commonly found in Manusha Janma. Therefore, you are behaving like Manusha, go back to Manusha. They cursed him. Then why he gets cursed? Why he shows such a difference there? That means there is a proneness. There are few weaknesses. Okay? There are a little weaknesses. Okay? Those weaknesses cannot be compared with the Manusha Janma weaknesses. Note it. They are highly sophisticated in the background of their bhakti, background of their Vaikuntha level weaknesses, you have to say that. They are highly sophisticated, mature in a great, the weaknesses found in a highly saintly people. Don't compare them with ordinary people. Okay. Otherwise, you just ill-treat them. Don't ill-treat them. They are all highly advanced bhaktas, very great people. So therefore, in Vaikuntha Vasas, even their Jaya Vijayas have got those minor differences. They also interfere. They also have got ego and then what you call hatred and anger and all that. Okay. So Advaitins say, as long as you are Jiva and Ishvara, the world, and this difference is there, a small degree of raga dvesha will remain, a small degree of samsara remains. Therefore, the very jivatvam is samsara, whichever loka you are. Even if you live close to God, still God is away from you. The distance, whatever distance you maintain with God, that distance is jivatvam. That is also a part of, it is a highly advanced, sophisticated samsara, but it is samsara, they say. It is not it cannot be compared with worldly, this human janmas, even Swarga also. It is much more than you come very close to Ishvara. But even close, it doesn't mean oneness with Ishvara. A slight, a minute difference is there. That much of minute samsara will be there. A thin, a faint samsara. A faint samsara blocks you. You are very close. In fact, you enjoy the Paramatma's intimacy much more. But a faint difference, a thin difference. Something like a transparent difference. A thin layer. Like a makhmal cloth, like that. A thin layer. That difference is there. That also has to goes by only Advaita. Okay. But that is a very highest state of Vaikuntha and all that. Okay, never underestimate it. It's a very highest state. You come, Shankaracharya says it is almost near to Ishar. Ishad Vikruta, he says, a small degree less. In fact, almost nearly you have reached Brahma. You are only little less, they say. Shankaracharya says in one place, you have come very nearly to Brahma. Only little bit, a small thing is blocking, he said. Shankara never underestimates Vaikuntha like other people, okay? We never abuse them, never underestimate them, because they have come very closer to Paramatma. Only a small thing is interfering. Okay, these ordinary people may abuse Advaita, okay, leave them, they just don't understand, they do all those things. But real advanced, real great sadhakas, real great bhaktas of Dvaita, Vishishta Advaitans, they come very close to it. That's why they enjoy a minor difference between them and come closer to them. Advaitins say even that distance also, that itself is a great highest state, but even in that, a slight distance gives you a slight difficulty. So, even at that stage, Jiva wants to lose completely his individuality, lose himself completely and becomes one with. Therefore, there, even that distance, even that small degree of Jivatvam is also due to avidya, even that is samsara. Therefore, Jivatvam in any manner, in any state, in any form is samsara. Okay, now we stop. We stop with this comparison and come back to our adhyasa. I think 2 classes we took for this contrast. I think we have to do little bit so that then only it becomes clear. Okay. Now he says, this naisargikaha jiva bhava. Now they don't question why I am jiva. See, none of them they question why I am jiva at all. They say I am jiva. So, as a jiva I am suffering from samsara. They say the samsara karanam is something else. Whether Abrahamic religions or Arya Samaj or even Dvaita Vishishta Advaitas 3 and the 4th is Advaitins. Other than Advaitins, all these people, they don't question why I am Jiva at all. They say the Jiva is there and Jiva is suffering from samsara. Now he has to be lifted from samsara and taken to moksha. Now why he is suffering from samsara? 3 reasons, 3 schools we have categorized. According to Abraham, he is suffering from samsara because of Satan. Because of Satan you are suffering from samsara. You have become obedient to Satan. Now you start rejecting Satan and accepting God. It is simply shifting your loyalty to one party to another party. The Abrahamic religions, you have been loyal to Satan party. Now you shift to your loyalty, shift to your party membership to God's party. That's all. Then you will be taken to heaven. For them, samsara means joining an opposition party. God is a ruling party and Satan is an opposition party. Okay. You have been loyal to opposition party. You have done, what you say? Treachery, traitorship. You have been traitor to God. Only you remove the traitorship. You join the God's party. You become what you call a covenant of with God. The covenant of the God you come and join. Therefore, you leave your, loyalty to Satan, come to the God's party. God lays down certain conditions. You follow those conditions. What are those conditions? Start hating Satan, start hating Hindus, start hating idol worship, start hating, doing all those things. God lays certain 10 commandments and certain rules. Follow them. You belong to the God's party. After death, you will go to heaven. That's all. Samsara is over. Moksha comes. Eternally, you will remain in heaven. Now, for them, samsara is due to external reason. Therefore, that loyalty has to be shifted. Samsara is over. That's all your problems are. Sin is over, you will go to heaven. Now, for the Brahma Kumari and Arya Samaj, you do certain punya karmas, and as a result of punya karma, you will go to heaven and remain there alone. That is moksha. That is over. According to Dvaitins and Vishishtadvaitins, your papas will go away, lower level punyas will go away. Bhakti, Ishvara Jnanam and Nirantara Bhakti you do all life. If not one janma, do more janmas. Then as a result of many janma, you will become fit for going to Vaikuntha. You remain jiva, but you will remain with Utkrishta jiva, highly purified jiva, and go to Vaikuntha and remain there. Okay? These three are samsara. For according to Abraham, samsara karanam is outside. According to Arya Samaj, samsara karanam is karma. According to them, abhakti. According to Advaitins, samsara karanam is very jivatvam. Very jivatvam is samsara. Samsara karanam is very adhyasa. Okay, now you come to Advaita. Samsara karanam is very adhyasa. Adhyasa, the misunderstanding, the mixing of Atma, Anatma, is the karanam. Therefore, you find yourself to be jiva. To get rid of the jivatvam and discover yourself to be Brahman, adhyasa has to be corrected. Now you see, they come to the root cause of the samsara. Jivatvam is samsara. Adhyasa is the cause of it. Okay? This adhyasa we'll discuss in the, not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll discuss Vishuddha Vedanta Sara. Okay? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namahan. Harihi Om Tat Sat.